Thanks for taking the time to be with us. We appreciate all that you represent, not only to Keller Williams, but also to our specific region. And obviously some of the people on this phone call that speak very highly of you and think very highly of you. And we're eager to learn from you today. We do have quite a number of people registered, and we're just excited to hear what you have to say to us. So welcome.
Terrific. Well, hey, thanks for having me, you guys. It really is a pleasure and an honor to be with you. Tiffany and I discussed what would be the best use of our time. So really wanted to talk about how do we win given the circumstances, right? So it's not just enough to get by, but how do we win? And so we wanted to spend some time there. And then we also wanted to allow a time for a Q&A. And it's my intent to honor that request. So what I want to start with is what I call death, disease, or domination. So frankly, there are going to be some people that don't make it through this economic, because the pandemic has turned into an economic challenge, right? Yeah. And so, we are now at 38.6 million people are now unemployed. 40% of the people who made $40,000 or less lost their job. So anytime I see nearly 40 million Americans lose your job, literally we lost 40 million people who could own a home. Now, if you think about it, historically speaking, does anybody know what percentage of the population owns a house, whether free and clear or with a mortgage? Raise your hand if you want to answer. Who knows, there might be a prize if you get it close.
I'll guess 2%.
So what percent owns a home? Not they can have it as with a mortgage or free and clear, but of Americans, what percentage of Americans are homeowners versus renters?
40%.
So I'm going to stay in curiosity. So 40% own a home and 60% rent, right?
Or yes.
All right. So do I have another guess?
We got a guess of 32% in the chat.
All right, 32%. Okay, awesome. Do I have a higher guess than 40 and 32? All right, so typically speaking, in the United States, we run anywhere from about 62, 63%.
Caught that one, 60.
All right, so and then what happened, if you remember the previous, before the previous correction, we had gotten up to about 68%, and versus, like I said, a historical 62 to 63. Now, I just want you to think about that for a second. If you take that nearly 40 million people, 60% of that's 24 million people who are then pulled out of what would normally be a potential homeowner, right? Because last time I checked, you ain't going to get a mortgage if you're unemployed. And so even though the real estate market, let's say, was red hot prior to COVID-19, the impact of the economy will be headwinds for the real estate market. Does that make sense? So, not to be Debbie Downer, because I am not. Again, I believe death, disease, or domination. So there will be people who don't make it. They'll fall out. There'll be businesses that don't make it. I feel really, my heart really breaks for small business owners who, through really no fault of their own, and have no revenue for 3 months. Okay? That's difficult. And there'll be disease. There'll be people who never really get better financially, and they struggle. And so those are the people that may make it, may stay in the business, may stay in whatever, but they'll never fully, quote unquote, recover. And then there'll be people who actually do better, that the future is brighter than, as strong as the market was pre-COVID-19, will actually come out stronger. Do you guys believe that? I love this quote from Joshua Marine.
Yes.
He said, challenges are what makes life interesting. Overcoming them is what makes life meaningful. So I want you to know I do not like, nor do I believe there is such a thing as the new normal. How many times have we heard that?
I keep
Not just-
saying, I hated
Too
that
many.
expression.
Okay? By the way, there isn't. What it is, guys, it's going to be different. Okay? Twitter announced that they're going to allow people to permanently work from home.
Yeah.
Okay? So it is going to be different. The travel industry is going to be different. The training industry is going to be different. The real estate industry is going to be different. The entertainment industry is going to be different. Everything is different. And some of that is, the artificial intelligence, artificial intelligence revolution, the fourth industrial revolution, the technology takeover, all of that was escalated during COVID-19, right? And by the way, some things the things that I learned in COVID-19 or applied to my life, I actually want to take those with me going forward. To give you an idea, when I was your regional director, I spent 100 nights a year in a hotel room. I haven't been in a hotel room in 4 months. And I'm going to tell you, I ain't going back to that type of travel schedule. When during the training and consulting, I walked on the airplane and they knew my name. I don't want to go back to that. Okay? So there are some things from COVID I want to take with me. I want to take with me that, time with family is a lot more important. I am literally surprised that American Express has not called me to see whether or not I was alive. Because the amount of money I spent while I was traveling, things like that, I'm not spending that. So I need to take with me going forward. My budget can be totally changed financially in the future, right? All of us, most of us have spent a lot less money monthly over the last 60 days than we did normally. That's a great thing to take with you. You see that? So it's going to be different. There is no new normal. It's just going to be different. What isn't settled is whether or not it's better. So is there anybody on the call? I know there are a couple that went through the last downturn and shift. Max?
Our market center for sure.
Yeah.
Got a couple people in the chat saying yes.
Awesome. Is there anything you're glad, looking back, are there things that you're glad about that you learned or changed based on that?
Max, I can say controlling cost is something that I'm more aware of than I was during that time frame. I thought I was doing a good job of controlling costs, but you not only need to control costs, you need to strive to impact your revenue and keep it up as well. Absolutely,
and we are going to talk about that. I agree. One thing that, by the way, the first real estate company I actually purchased was in 2007. How's that for timing? I started actually developing. I was a partner in developments, and I started those at the end of 2006 and 2007. How was that for timing? I had to write checks to buy my way out of the subdivisions, the development. Okay. So I learned some things in that. One, I really despise debt. So I am, I have an aversion to debt, and that has been served me well. I've since that point, I haven't had consumer debt, and I don't remember when. And there's literally nothing on the earth except, if one of my loved ones had a life or death situation, and I didn't have all the resources necessary, that's the only thing I could think of that I'd be willing to go into debt for. Okay. I am willing. I do believe in using leverage in buying real estate. I'm okay with that. But apart from that, that's it. If it's not a mortgage, I don't owe anybody. Okay. And so that ability was part of that mindset was shaped in the last downturn. The other thing is, I really saw the importance of passive income, that if my primary source of revenue was impacted, which when you're a real estate agent, not only was the value of properties we own drastically dropping, but so was our revenue, right? So I focused on passive income, and and today I have more, I have more in passive income than I did than active income as a successful agent when I joined KW. And so my budget, frugality, no debt, and passive income, those two primary changes are why, as I sit here today, I don't like the pain and suffering that's going to be caused by the economic downturn. However, I am not paralyzed by it, right? So again, I want you to think, what can you take out? What lessons can you learn? Because that's what life is about. And you can be better off based on that. So when fear happens, there are 3 responses to fear. Most of us know the first response, the first 2, which are fight or flight, right? The deadliest response is actually freeze. And, over the years, most people I encounter take the freeze option when adversity hits. So that's the last thing you want to do. You want to get in action. Because even if you are doing the wrong thing, what action did versus freezing is the action allowed you to realize that won't work and I can course correct. All right. How many of you are familiar with the company Spanx? I hope I pronounced that correctly. But it's I think primarily female. I don't know if it has a male line. I don't know that it would, but it's a female line of, I guess, what do they say, shapewear or something. So, but the gal who owned that, Sarah Blakely, right? Blakely. She shares the story that every week her father would ask them, the children, what did you fail at this week? And the only time he was disappointed is if you didn't fail. Because what he instilled in them was failing at something was not the problem. That's a learning experience. Not acting is the challenge. So whatever you do, get into action. So you get to choose, is it going to be better for me or worse than, I get to make that decision. And I believe it can be better. It can be a lot better. So I've spent a lot of time on mindset, and it is important because both the MREA, the Millionaire Real Estate Agent, and the Shift book both start with mindset. Okay. Napoleon Hill, he stated, patience, persistence, and perspective make an unbeatable combination for success. We have to get clear in our mind. All right. So spent some time talking about you get to decide what your future is going to look like. You have to change your mindset. And especially now because we realize that this is not a short-term blip. It's not a sprint. There are going to be some long-term implications. It just is, right? It's different. No more new normal crap. It's just different. It's progress, okay? There is actual progress in this process. So anybody who knows me, I like simple. If you can reduce things to simple, you're more likely to act, right? So the first thing I want you to think about is just a couple of simple strategies to win. And that is, you need to be positive, right? Now, I don't believe in being positive Pollyanna. You need to be positive and realistic, right? So, if like in Pennsylvania, where they literally couldn't even have a closing until last week, right? Or actually earlier this week. It was this week, right? So, you can be positive, but you have to be realistic. Now, some of you are saying, how can you be positive when there's no real estate transactions going on whatsoever, right? What are some things that you could say would be positive about that? And I believe it's Nicole that was doing a great job on my chat room. So anybody got what's some positives about no real estate transactions?
Opportunities for training and connecting with your database. Opportunities to become more efficient with technology.
Absolutely.
Tighten up your systems.
Absolutely. Awesome.
Relationships.
Super. Hey, you want to know, here's an interesting thing. Unlike every other industry, our industry doesn't lose the transaction. Now, what do I mean by that? So, case in point, if Jill and I, that's Mrs. Fischetti, if we typically go out to dinner one night a week, and we haven't done that for the last 8 weeks, so to speak, eat someplace, then I'm not going to go make up those missed dinners. It's just not how you work, okay? So I'm not necessarily going to go make up some leisure activity expenses. I'm not going to make up some of that corporate travel. I'm not going to make up those expenses. Real estate, people are still going to move. What's going to happen, I believe, 2020 will have a similar number of transactions. They'll just occur in a lot less months. We do have the advantage of a pent-up demand. Okay. And here's a beautiful thing about COVID. There are some people who have been locked down with some people. They say, by God, I ain't living with this person another day. So there are going to be 3 transactions, getting rid of the one they own together and each one buying another one. And some of them are going to say, golly days, I am getting a home gym and an office and I'm getting a new house. Okay. And some of them have liked each other so much that all of a sudden they're going to need a bigger place. Okay. So there are a lot of advantages that you can look at from this COVID, okay? And so real estate is still primarily a life change issue. I said that some people lost their jobs, some people are going to lose their business, and that means they're not going to be able to keep the place they have. They still got to sell, and they'll need you more, okay? So be positive, be purposeful. Okay. Now's not the time just to be willy-nilly about things. You be on point. Time is really precious. Listen, there are a lot of mothers out there and fathers who are doing homeschooling for the first time in their life. Okay. They're homeschooling. They're taking all these other responsibilities and things going on at the same time and trying to fit it around some type of work schedule. Right. So you got to be on point. Can't dilly-dally. You got to be proactive. Okay? Real estate is a contact sport. You got to make contact with people. You've got to take action. Sometimes just being first is best, right? I will tell you, I shut down, I put people at stay-at-home work before the NBA shut down. Now, I also probably came back a little faster than other people, and yet I also told other people not to come back. But I'm okay with being first. The middle of March, I immediately did some things, changed some things so that we created some stimulus package for real estate agents and different things to be proactive. Okay, I made the decision. At Ballantyne's, the #1 most profitable market center in Keller Williams. However, I made some decisions that we were going to take. We had our best month ever in March. And guess what I did with all the company dollar that was above my expenses? Guess what? My entire 2020 rent has already been paid.
Prepaid expenses.
Okay, I prepaid expenses. Okay, and this May is the first time I may consider a significant profit calculation. My expenses are paid. I got a pretty good idea of what the future is going to look like. I feel comfortable enough to act, but I was proactive. Be practical, okay? Be on, and then be present. We got a lot going on in the world. When you're at home, be at home. If you've got kids or you're helping with grandkids, you name it, you're with your spouse, your significant other, be present, okay? If you're using running outside as part of your cardio, or if it's walking, allow yourself. It's okay to do that. And more importantly, you need to take care of you first. Stop trying to worry about making sure that your phone's available while you're exercising, or for the kids. Set some parameters around what it is you're going to do, okay? Some of you, given your home environment, your children, or who else you're living, or maybe you're taking care of an elderly person, whatever it is, some of you may only be able to devote 2 hours a day to work. Fine. But be present at that moment, okay? A dualistic mind is actually wasteful. You're not doing service to either one, okay? If you don't believe that, just think about the yahoos who text and drive, right? Yes, I said that. Don't text and drive. So be present. Hey, be pure. When you call to check on somebody, let it be pure. The business will take care of itself, okay? Be genuine in checking in on people. There's no need, okay, and we're going to talk about some scripture on it. There is no need to go salesy at this moment, okay? And so there are certainly some things that you can offer to people, like on refinancing opportunities to help them out, that brings up a real estate conversation, and you can help them in that regard. But this is not, how quickly can I get past, are they okay as human beings, and I can get down to money? Please don't do that, okay? Quite frankly, if that's your mindset, I know the leadership of your market center, and there's probably a different KW office you should be a part of. Isn't that accurate? Knowing, listen, the one thing I will tell you about Max and Wendy is they genuinely care about people. If you're going to be a fraud, get the hell out, okay?
Thanks, Jim. Well said.
And then the other thing is be powerful. You have an opportunity here. Don't discount what you can accomplish. So the first thing you guys should have done is actually your budget. Back on the airplane, they always say, put your mask on first. So I just have a simple philosophy on your budget. you need to look at your budget and figure out what's that number, right? And you have to get that budget lower than the worst case revenue number. So if you're an individual and you're looking at your business saying, man, oh man, I'm lucky if I can get $5,000 a month in revenue, then you need to get your budget to less than $5,000. Period. You got to do whatever's necessary to get it so that your outflow is less than worst case income. All right. And the simple way to do that is I always go through an ABC. You know, I'm an old guy where ABC was always be closing, but look at your budget, divvy it up into 3 categories. A are the things I got to have, right? I got to have shelter. I got to have food. You know, you got to have internet. You got to have a Zoom account today, right? So there are some things that we added that we didn't used to have. And then the second category, B, are the things I'd like to keep. Netflix, Amazon, you know, whatever. Okay, you get to decide what those items are. And the C are the things that I can cut today. Okay. You know, the truth of the matter is, if I can refinance and cut today, do it. If I got a credit card that has travel points, but I'm paying a fee for, get rid of that card, get a no-fee card, right? Every penny saved is real money, people, okay? And so go through your budget, and by the way, it's not a one-and-done exercise. You'll need to relook at it, okay? Some of us are looking, what is that recurring charge on my credit card, right? So some of you have forgotten that you had gym memberships. Whatever, so go through what I got to keep, what I'd like to keep, and what I got to get rid of, okay? And then do that analysis. Worst case revenue, get my budget down to there. Then the second aspect of financial is, what are my resources? How much cash do I have? And, you know, and worst case, how long can I go? And this is rhetorical. I'm not asking anybody to raise their hand. Some of us don't have enough cash on hand. And if you face that situation, you need to basically sell anything and everything except the kids, unless you can get good money for them. No, I'm kidding. Okay. So, but you know, pretty much anything you have, you need to be willing to get rid of, right? How many of you have heard of the real estate company Realogy?
Yep.
What did they recently sell? And actually, they're in a litigation to try to keep the sale going. They sold the Cardis, their relocation. I mean, that was, you know, if you think Realogy, that's probably like, to me, one of their huge value things. I mean, that's one thing I've always known about them, is having the #1 relocation asset, correct? And that, you listen, and they made the decision that we needed cash more than we needed that asset. So, by the way, for those of you who do recruiting, there's an aha. They just lost one of their value pieces, okay?
Absolutely.
So, and then create your cash on hand and prove it, okay? And keep monitoring it, all right? So now you're good. Now, you need to understand, how many fingers do I have? 5. What I want every one of you to think about, what are my 5 lead sources? Everybody gets to pick those, but you need, especially today, you need to have 5 lead sources. Every one of us needs to pour into our sphere of influence, right? Not our database, because our database is Mets and non-Mets, okay? But the people who like you and want to do business with you and have done business with you in the past, your sphere of influence. Number uno, most important, right? So, what are some other sources of leads? Go ahead and start typing them in chat, right? I'm gonna give you 30 seconds. I'm gonna see how many you guys can come up with. I'm giving you 30 seconds because I gave myself 30 seconds to see how many I could come up with. I think we got maybe 15. All
All right,
right.
Jim, do you want me to read them now?
Yeah, go ahead. Tell me how many we get.
All right. So we have family members, agent referrals, past clients, sphere of influence, vendors, people from where you used to live, people you worked with in the past, allied resources, command, Facebook. So generating leads through social media, family and referrals, vendors. Did I miss anything?
All right, so let me just, that's great. Let me throw out a few more. Farming, right? Still works. Direct mail, still works. Cold calling, still works. FISBOs, expired, still work. Open houses, they can be virtual.
Neighbors.
New construction, still works. Seminars, you can do them, you can do a webinar. Pay-per-click, you guys did that. Print media, don't forget, there is that. Some of you may use radio and TV. Investors, don't forget to use investors. And hey, you might want to sharpen up your skills on REO and short sales. Relocation is still out there. Door knocking, probably wouldn't do that today. There are people who have guaranteed sales programs or iBuyer. You could certainly use that. And then circle prospecting. So those are some of the ones you guys missed that I think are important. And how many of you know that Command has this incredible feature? And that is that you can look at your Princeton and you can say, where do the majority of people move from to come to Princeton? Did you know that Command has that in the referral section? So what can you do with that information? How can you leverage that to build your business?
Balbino saying farm that area.
So, really that's partly what I would do. What I would probably do is that, so you're not really going to farm in the sense of if it's out of state, but you certainly could run social media ads for those zip codes, right? You could actually be strategic in picking out those locations which people are moving from and do your $5 a day ad on Facebook for those areas, okay? And then the second thing is that you can actually use that, show that data on a listing presentation and give you a one-upmanship compared to your competitor, right? So there's two ways to just take that one simple strategy aspect, value add that you have, and use it for your personal benefit, right? And so I want us to think in terms of how can we use, because today is the time that when you look at your calendar, okay, I'm going to get practical again, you're going to spend somewhere between 60 and 80% of your time working in your business. And so what I mean by that would be your lead generation. That would be transaction management. That would be follow-up, okay? That would be, and then that leaves you anywhere from 40 to 20%. And then you're going to break those into two categories: working on your business, maybe setting up smart plans, getting your database in, contacts in, right? And then the other half, I want you to work on you, right? So some of that, this is working on you and working on your business, so a portion of that. You know, there is a temptation. There are so many great quote unquote learning opportunities out there. I don't want you to get overly bogged down on that. I need you to make sure you're still working on your business. So 60 to 80% of it in it, and then split that remaining 20 to 40 between working on it and working on you. Does that make sense? Is that practical? And then so calendar those items and schedule those items. And then get in your sphere, okay? So if you need to pick up the phone, and the number one most effective script is get ready. This is gold. Write it down, memorize it, don't lose it. It works every time. Hello. If you stumble after that, it doesn't matter. You picking up the phone and calling them and saying hello is a game changer. How many of you have reached out to people in your sphere of influence and just called to check on them? Now, let me ask you this. How many, by the way, you are a customer of all kinds of people. Maybe it was a vehicle, a dealership, maybe it's a lawn service, you name it, but you are actually in other people's database. Are you aware of that? Who's called you? Has anybody on this call been called?
Looks like Nick Barrero received a call.
All right, so Nick, how'd that make you feel?
I'm not sure if Nick is answering, but I think he might be, doesn't have voice there.
He doesn't. He's chat.
Yeah.
But,
It just amazes you, yeah, that the hairdresser hasn't called you.
right.
The nail salon hasn't called you. And you've been going there for years.
Okay, so here's what I do want to say. I know you guys have been called. You want to know why? Because I bet somebody in the market center reached out to you. And so that's what I want you to realize. What's scary is that the most businesses right now aren't doing the one basic thing they should be doing, and that is checking on their people. Like, I've gotten a bunch of emails from those people, like from the place I get my hair cut, nobody's picked up the phone and called me. Literally, nobody's called and asked me how I'm doing. Now, I would tell you, I hope to God that if you're in a leadership role in the market center, or you're in an ownership role, your regional leadership team has probably reached out and called you to check on you. But, I'm in a leadership role in a region. I haven't had that call. But I've made hundreds of calls. That's who we should be, right? When we talk about gaining market share in a shift that you'll never lose, I want you to realize that you guys are not different than the people you're calling in your database. They're not, any other businesses aren't going to check on them. Do you realize how much you're anchoring your relationship with them by checking on them? If you're leading a market center and you're checking on your people, there's somebody who's going to stay because you checked in on them. That's not why we did it. We need to let them know we're human. Now is the time to be a human first. Okay? We're all human beings. Okay? Thank God let's put Democrat, Republican, liberal, conservative, shut down, no shut down, all that crap aside. Let's be human. Okay? So literally ask them. Now, be practical. How many of you know there are advantages to refinancing? So what are the advantages to refinancing?
Save on interest.
Reduce your payment, right? How many of you knew that you could actually strategically refinance to skip 3 payments? What would that do for somebody's cash flow? Think I'm kidding? I want you to think for a second. All right, today's May. So what if I scheduled my closing for July 7th? Would I make my July 1st payment? Nope. I'd let them take it out of the proceeds, wouldn't I? So I would have skipped the July payment. I don't have an August payment. My first mortgage payment would not be until September. So I skipped 3 payments. What's that going to do for somebody's cash flow? Here's the other thing. If I refinance and do a different lender, what happens to my escrow account if I have escrow?
You get it back.
And so not only am I going to save cash, I'm going to save cash flow. I'm actually going to get cash. And some of your folks may need that simple strategy of not having a payment for 3 months, of being strategic and getting the cash from their escrow account can be the difference between their business making it and not making it. Please, dear God, tell me this is not the first time you've heard this. Has anybody?
No, it's not the first time, right?
Right, but you understand, we need to share that with our people. And I know some of you, you're hearing it for the first time and you're saying, whoa, yeah, I definitely can help some people with that. Because you can. Because most other agents, now, Joe, I want you to think about that for a second. Almost every agent's telling them you can save whatever, a couple $100, and I don't mean a couple $100, a couple $100. That's a good deal. But not many people have told them how to be strategic, miss 3 payments, and get some cash.
A lot of people have discussed, Jim, taking your full line of credit out because they're not giving those any longer, and banking it.
Hey, listen, you can make a case for that because interest rates are relatively low. I would, and you're right that some of them might not do that. I don't like debt, so if
Right.
at all possible, I don't want to borrow money. Okay.
Right, we haven't done that step either, but some people are saying that money will be worth it for your passive income possibilities for your.
Oh, and here's the other thing. Stuff is going to go on sale, right? Now, by the way, so are clothes. Most of us don't, we don't need to go out and buy a new wardrobe, even though that COVID-19 has turned in for some of us an extra 15 pounds. Don't buy new clothes. If you put on weight, whatever you do, don't buy new clothes. That's the worst thing you can do. Get yourself back into whatever it was you were, okay? So, but assets, for instance, there might be some good real estate opportunity buys, right? So one of the top 10 real estate agents in the world is in Raleigh, North Carolina, and he's with Coldwell Banker. His name is Jim Allen. Do you know how he built his business?
During the shifts.
So for instance, Jim and I've known Jim for years. Jim, before the last downturn, Jim and I were both probably doing 40, 50 million annually in sales, okay? And what Jim did during the last shift was he bought subdivisions that were unfinished for pennies on the dollar. And when the market turned around, guess what he did? He finished developing them. He sold the lots to builders. Guess what he required the builder to do? List with him. Last year he did over 400 million in real estate sales, plus made, millions of dollars in selling lots. But he put cash and had cash available, and banks, by the way, banks are unique. Even if they sell you those foreclosed lots for 5 cents on the dollar, do you know how they treat that on their balance sheet? So part of the reason why you can cut a deal with a bank is that when they foreclosed, the loss was taken. Whatever they sell it for is actually black ink, not red ink. So even though they sold it for pennies on the dollar, from an accounting standpoint, to make themselves look better to the feds and the regulators, that's they've unloaded an asset and got revenue, and that's considered a win. So especially, so you know, it takes a significant. But some of you say, well, I'm not going to have that much money. Well, then maybe find there. We all know people who do have. You can pull your resources. So just think differently, right? You need, and then you need to be in business. There's an old expression, business begets business. If you stay in motion, you're more likely to be successful, okay? Now, this analogy I use now isn't as impactful for us, but when you're at, when you were at, remember when you used to be able to go to a gym? When you're at the gym, is it difficult to exercise? No, it's really easy. The hard part is getting your derriere off the couch. That's the hard part. Once you make the decision, get off the couch and go, it's very easy to do the effort. Some of you have been sitting on your derriere on the couch when it comes to real estate. Get off your boom boom, okay? How many of you have ever heard of the TV show Bosch on Amazon? Okay, I love, if you look at his cubicle, there's a little 8.5 by 11 little piece of paper sticking up on his cubicle. Anybody who's seen the show, do you know what it says? Max, tell them what it says.
Get off your ass.
And knock on doors.
And knock on doors.
Yep. So we can't knock on doors, but you can get off your ass and call somebody, people. And so now some of you need to just go watch Bosch just to see that. And it's on regardless of what season, it's in there. Okay. And right, we're on 6 now, but you can go back to 3 and you can see it. You can go back to the current one. It's a great show. It's very good. But truthfully, probably don't take entertainment advice from me. But I love that little get off your ass and go knock on doors. Okay. Be proactive. All right. Wanted to be able to make sure we had time for the Q&A. So first of all, take a deep breath. How did we do so far?
We're doing good.
All right. Great. So Tiffany said there should be a Q&A. Some of those could be, hey, I still am a script guy. So if you have an objection you would like me to see if I have an objection handler for, I'm willing to do that. On database, let me share this one little thing. I'd like you to, so KW talks about in the MREA about METs and non-METs, right? I would rather you actually change your classification in your database. Okay, so I want you to have non-METs and then METs. METs, I want you to have influence. Influence, I want you to have business. And from business, I want you to have raving fans. Does that make sense? So start to categorize your people as either A, I've met them or I haven't met them. So if I haven't met them, I need to just simply have a simple strategy to go from not met to met. If I've met them but I don't have influence, you need to start to build the relationship so that you can have influence with them. Once you have influence with them, you either need to be able to do business with them or have them send you business so that they move to the business category. So you have strategies on that. And if you've done business with them or they've given you business, you need to have a plan to turn them into a raving fan. So your job is to only move them one slot. Does that make sense? It's just like if you had your lead and somebody was an A lead, that's usually somebody who can do something today. A B lead is 30 days and 60 to 90 days out's a C lead. Your job with a C lead is to move them to B. Your job with a B lead is to move them to A. Your job with an A lead is to put them on paper, whether list their house or have them go under contract. Okay? So your job with a non-Met is moving to a Met. Met to influence, influence to business, business to raving fan. See, I told you I'm not real bright. I'm simple. And more barbecue makes me even more simple. All right, so Q&A. Who wants to? Well, Nicole, you're going to work the chat. And if you want to raise your hand and speak live, you can do that too.
Sure, I can go ahead and do that. So one question in the chat is handling an objection from potential sellers who think now is a bad time to sell.
So so here's my position. Nicole, I can appreciate your concern. What I will tell you is there's a possibility to get worse before it gets better. Would you agree?
Yeah.
So you have a lot to lose if you don't take advantage of today. The other thing I'm going to just honestly tell you, Nicole, any real estate agent that tells you they can tell the future probably isn't telling you the truth.
That's a real simple script.
They're also accurate.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember one time, several times we heard that thing about that curve that we use. And it says, tell me when to stop, when it's the right time to sell. And the person says, stop when you say too late.
Right. By the way, some people have figured that out today, right?
Yeah.
So the other thing is, if it starts to go down, how do you catch a ball that's rolling downhill?
Get in front of it.
And let it come to you. And if the market turns, that's what's going to happen for you as a seller. You're going to have to reduce the price so that you're ahead of it and let the market come to you.
Jim, I had some questions. Just the original numbers we talked about in the beginning. That 24 million. What kind of percentage of the overall potential homeowners is that number?
No, that 24 million are homeowners or potential homeowners. The 38 million was the people who've lost their jobs.
Yeah.
Historically speaking, 60 to 62, 63% of the Americans are homeowners. And if you lose your job, you're either going to lose your home if you don't get a job real quick, or if you were wanting to become a homeowner, you can't become a homeowner.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's strong. Everybody, all of us, we had an incredible shortage of inventory. And so, the real estate market was really, really strong. And for some reason, people were running around telling you that real estate will bounce back right back. It's going to be a V curve, right? Did you guys ever hear that? I don't think so. Here's the other thing. I would rather you plan. So if you remember the market, there are 4 different quarters in a real estate market. Does everybody know that? And they measure real estate markets from the top of a seller's market going down to the bottom. So the top is 1 quarter, moving down is a 2nd quarter, the bottom is a 3rd, and an up is the 4th. So they measure from top to top. Where are we?
Bottom.
Are we at the top? Are we going down? Or are we at the bottom? Or are we going up? You pick. Of those 4, which do you believe is the most likely that your market is in?
Well, they've been telling us a long time that the adjustment to the market were what year into a 7-year curve?
About 11 or 12.
Yeah, 11, 12.
Yeah.
So at any moment, you can consider this moment the top because of the historical nature of that analysis of 7 years.
Yeah, and then I think that the little shock to the economy, at a minimum, would you agree we're probably in a downward cycle?
Yes.
We'd have to be, yes.
Right?
Yes.
So what market are you supposed to behave in as a real estate agent?
The one that's coming.
The
All
coming.
right, one ahead. So if you believe we're here, you should be behaving as if we're at the bottom,
Right.
which is why I spent a lot of time at the beginning talking about your personal finances and budget. Okay? Now, what that means is when you start to think we're nearing the bottom or could be at the bottom, you should start to spend and be proactive as if it's coming up. Because what happens is that a lot of people got out of real estate. About 2/3 of that will be your opportunity to really be in the market getting the increase without a lot of competition. That's where you get, that's where the real wealth and economic opportunity is created as a real estate agent. In that period, that triangle period of when the rest of the market hasn't quite caught up and you're taking advantage of the upward tick. Because here's what's funny. In 2009, 2010, and 2011, per transaction per agent went up. It went down in 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Okay.
I know just this week, Gary Keller was saying, he's been through 5 shifts.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was saying that this one might be the worst, but I thought about that and said that probably every time you went through a shift, you said that was the worst one.
Yeah. All right. So I think Gary's really smart. So I'm a skeptic. Okay. I'm a black hat guy. But I think if I lived in Gary's world, I'd slit my wrist. I do not share I do not share the same the sky is quite as falling as much as he does. Okay. So I do want you to realize that you have an opportunity. There's hope and opportunity there. Okay. I do not personally, I do not believe that the real estate. Now, let me be clear. So Petra, what I don't know, and I've heard Gary speak many times. I was in a mastermind with him earlier this month. I don't believe the real estate collapse will be as bad as the last shift, which in real estate was a depression. For the economy, they called it a Great Recession. In real estate, it was a depression. Now, I believe the economy shift is liable to be worse than the last one. Okay? I don't believe real estate. And here's another thing. Out of the last 5 recessions, what happened to real estate prices in the last 5 recessions? Does anybody know what happened?
I'm not sure.
They were stagnant, right?
So actually they went up in 3 of the last 5. One of the last 5 was the Great Recession in real estate. So if we threw that one out, that means out of the 4 previous, 3 of the times real estate values went up. How many of you know we're printing money like drunken sailors and spending money, right? And the economic principle that is most likely to result from that activity of what the government is doing is what?
Recession.
So, all right, so yes, and will we have inflation or deflation?
Inflation.
Inflation.
Inflation. So if you have inflation, where would you like to have your money?
Housing.
In a hard asset, right?
Hard
So
asset.
some people are buying gold, right? That's a hard asset. Problem with gold, for instance, I got a brother-in-law. He's telling me how he's moved all this money into gold. And I said, hey, Keith, that's awesome. That is a hedge against inflation. Here's the problem. If you need cash flow, guess what? You got to sell the asset for cash flow. If you take that money and invest it in real estate, the hard asset will go up in value and the rents will go up in value and you'll have cash flow. You won't need to get rid of your asset to fund your life. By the way, that's a conversation you could be having with potential real estate investors also. It's also a conversation you could be having with you and your significant other.
Mhm.
Right? Do me a favor. If you don't own an investment property, don't let this opportunity go by without getting one. Okay. I love real estate. I've been in real estate since 1984. I'm not going to get rich from being a real estate agent. You don't get rich selling real estate. You get rich and you can become wealthy by investing in real estate.
Jim, question.
Yeah.
Every office of probably every company has a bottom tier of agents that don't do very much business. And we're no different.
Mm-hmm.
We have those, what we want from those agents is, of course, a little business.
Mm-hmm.
And it would be great if they would do one or two at least a year and cover their expenses and have a little money in their pocket, and even move into the middle tier of half capper level area agents. What one or two things could any office address to those lower tier of agents who currently in this virus climate are probably not doing anything?
Right. So, you know, Max, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being completely honest, 1 being I'll just blow smoke up your skirt, how honest should I be when I answer this question?
Well, you know,
85%.
be as honest as you're comfortable, and we don't really need them in the strictest sense. I mean, we need to always care for the people who make us.
So, no, and I listen, and I believe. So let me say this: I believe I have an obligation and a sacred covenant with any agent who joins the organization. We have we committed to help them grow their business. Correct?
Right.
However, what I will here's where I may be closer to Black Hat to Gary than on some other things, and that is if you're looking at an organizational structure inside your company. And so what I'm doing is I'm taking my agent, okay, and just like my budget, I gotta have, like to keep, and probably need to get rid of, okay. My agent count, I'm looking at, I'm moving them into third sections also. So my cappers and above, I'm making sure that I stay in tight relationship with them, right? The half cappers are the people I'm most worried about, because in reality, they can fall to dead, right? They're disease. They really, you know, they're marginal as far as whether or not it makes sense to stay in. And if they lose 2 of their sales, they can go from a positive cash flow to a negative, and it doesn't make sense to go. So you actually want to, like, think of it as triage at an emergency room. Those are the people who and then the people over here, you need to have conversation with them, but you need to, and if they don't get it quickly, and if there is 0 or 1 a year, then you can't spend a lot of time there.
No, that's right.
All right. The people that you need to really focus on are that. So what we used to call the fat middle, right? Anybody know what I mean by that? Well, the thing about it is gotten really skinny lately. So, that those people that are doing, you know, and of course Princeton has a little higher price point, so maybe it's 1, but somebody between the 2 and 4 transaction a year, okay, those are the ones that are really at risk for you. And if you lose those financially, that's a big impact. That impacts our agents' profit share significantly, okay? Because in reality, unfortunately, most so the model in Keller Williams is that cappers pay your bills, right?
Yes.
Well, I remember in that region, you guys were about 13% of the agents were cappers. Well, that's not a third, third, a third. So most market centers rely on the people who do 2 to 4 units to actually pay their expenses and provide the profit.
Yes.
So so if you were to lose 50% of them, we would go from black ink to red ink overnight. And so those are the people you want to double down on, right? That's your big sphere of influence to double down, help them. And, if they can take a little market share and go from 2 and add 1, right? So if I were to guess, you probably have 150, at least 150 people in that category. Would you say that's accurate?
Yes.
So if we helped each one of them do 2 extra deals, right?
Yeah.
That, by the way, that will change their life. It will change the life of the market center. Wendy, what's the average company dollar per so what's on a non-capper? So what's the average sales price?
The average sales price is $291.
All right, so the average commission is about $8,500, right?
Correct.
30% of that, it's about $2,500.
Correct.
All right. So if we got them to do 2 deals for 150 people, that's 300. What's 300 times $2,500?
Yeah, that's awesome.
$750,000
Right.
in company dollar. And then what's $6,000 times 300?
1.8.
$1.8 million in the pockets of our people.
Yep.
That's where we need to spend our energy right now.
Mm-hmm. Thanks.
We've been doing that, so I feel like this is a winning conversation.
Way to go. Listen, I had no doubt that. And I'm not saying to forget those people. If they're in the bottom third, we want to stay in a relationship, get them, okay? But that you can't, that's kind of like if you got a listing that's 20% over market, and you're having a price adjustment conversation with them, and they're basically doing one of those to you, you should release the listing, and you should probably, that's your call whether or not you want to release. I'm not afraid to fire people, but that's me.
Yeah, we call them the mighty middle, and they've been a big focus for the market center. And
the people doing business, I'm with you. That and like I said, that the mighty middle is better than my fat middle. So yeah, I like that, the mighty middle. I will try. I intend to incorporate that versus the fat middle. Yes, that is. And by the way, every real estate company alive, whether you're KW or not KW, that's where the bulk of their revenue comes from. Mm-hmm. It's like how many of you have ever heard that we're not going to tax the middle class, right? And by the way, don't listen to a politician who says that, because that's where the vast majority of people are. Of course they're going to tax you, okay? Just don't. By the way, you do know that regardless of party, each politician has a unique facial tic that you can determine whether or not they're lying.
They open their mouth.
Their lips are moving.
Another question for the leaders on the call. What would you recommend we could do to prepare our agents for the differences in real estate going forward?
So the question is, what can we do to prepare our people for the change or the differences? Obviously there's going to be an adoption of technology. There may be some retrenching from where we're at this moment, okay? But we're likely to get back to COVID-19 at some point. We're not going to go back to pre-COVID-19 ever, period. So if they're not comfortable with that, they need to find somebody to help them on that. But the basics of real estate, staying in relationship to that database. I also remember have each one make sure they have at least 5 lead generation sources and they're operating those at all time. That's the key, right? So the other thing is if you have not met database, if you have a sphere of influence, right? Those are the people who already know you and like you. All right. How many units do I need to sell in Princeton to have a decent living?
8.
8. Awesome. So take 8 and multiply it. So in the old model, it's take 8 and multiply it by 6. And what do you get? 48, right? Well, an MREA 2.0 is probably going to be at about a 10% return versus an 18% return. So 80. So what I want you to understand, if you get somebody that you just have a database of 200 people who know them, like them, respect them, and would consider doing business with them, and they communicate with them 3 times a month, they are likely to get a 10% return, which is they're going to do about 20 transactions a year, and they've basically self-protected and and build a nice moat around a business. And 20 transaction in Princeton is a really nice living, right? So double down there. And by the way, technology can't separate you from that type of tight relationship, okay?
Absolutely. Those are the numbers that Command's starting to produce already.
Correct. And so so Nicole, that in the 36 years I've been in real estate, that hasn't changed. And it won't change. Because it's really tough for you. So for instance, you know, the only way, so for instance, the only way so really somebody is going to, my wife is going to have, the only way my wife would have an extramarital affair is if I stop paying attention to her. But I spend so much time with my girlfriend / bride of nearly 35 years, there's no time for her to have that. So my relationship's strong with her. There's no way that an internet or another human being is going to circumvent that relationship. That's the type of relationship you have got to have with your people. I want you to go back to the basics. Be in the community, okay? Get right. Go. If you want to live a big life, Gary says, get really small. You know, when I was in production, I focused on one zip code. That was it. There was a time when I had a 28% market share in that zip code. I literally, as a young guy, if you called up, if you had a property in Cary, North Carolina to sell, which was about only 25 minutes from my house and my office, I referred you. Because I made a commitment until I got 20% market share in 27587. I wasn't focusing on anything else. Everything else was a distraction. I wanted to own something. Own your database first, then make something else that you own. Maybe it's a subdivision. Maybe you get to a zip code. But be the guy, okay? Be the gal. You know?
Do you have any recommendations on how to use technology to create those strong relationships and to be in the community?
All right. Let's first of all, there are 3 phases to a real estate transaction, correct? Everybody knows this. The goal is to have a closing. So if I were to take a straight line, the dot at the end on the far right would be as my hand's going, it's probably your left, but in mine, the far right would be the closing. If I go back 7 to 10 weeks prior to that, that's the period in which the consumer makes a decision to get serious about either putting their house on the market or buying a house. We'll call that phase the transaction management phase. And then on the far left, there's the lead generation. Those 25 different things I said and some of the things you said, all those different lead generations. So that's phase 1. Phase 3 is the transaction management. That big space in the middle is the follow-up phase, okay? And that's where 70% of your results come through. The agents who succeed at the highest level do all three phases really well. Most importantly, they do it really well simultaneously. Otherwise, their real estate business looks like this. We've all seen the real estate agents who go on a roller coaster. The reason is they don't do the three phases simultaneously. So Nicole, to answer your question, the first thing is not technology. You know what the first thing to look for is? A model and then a system to implement that. So case in point, I said a 36 touch, right? 3 touches a month. So write this down. Here's a simple model to have a 36 touch with somebody. Put them on a neighborhood nurture, right? Monthly. Everybody either lives in a house, wants to know what's happening there, or they got a neighborhood they'd like to be in and they'd like to know what's happening. So that's 1 touch, right? So 1 a month is how many for a year?
12.
Awesome. You guys are great at math. And then if I did a quarterly event, how many touches would I have in a year?
Up to 16.
Well, actually up to 20.
Oh, okay.
And you want to know how I get to that number?
Because you're in is it 2 touches per quarterly event?
All right. So what happens is I got the quarterly event. So that's 4 touches, right? But they might not show up. So it's actually 0. But any quarterly event I have, I'm going to do a save the
date.
Okay. I'm going to do an invitation. I'm going to do a follow-up with the people for the event. Then I'm going to have the event, and then I'm either going to send them a thank you note or a sorry we missed you. So at a minimum, I have 4, possibly 5, which means I will have 16 or 20. Let's assume they didn't show up, so I only have 16. 16 and 12 is? It's not a hard math question. 16 plus 12 is?
28.
Awesome. Great job. Now, if all we did was call everybody once a quarter, make a warm personal touch, 4 plus 28 is how many?
32.
32.
32. Everybody in your database has a birthday, right? That's 33. Can you send them a holiday card? That's 34. In the spring, time goes forward. In the fall, it goes back. There's 36 or 40 in a simple plan, right? So you start with a model and a system, then you have technology to support that. And then finally, you have a person who drives it. And each one of those phases in your business needs to have a model and a system, and then some technology to support it, and then a person who drives it. Person or persons. So that's your simple plan. Again, remember, I like simple because I'm not smart enough to know really complicated. Is that helpful?
Very.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And because I love real estate. You know, when I was a real estate agent, my best day was 32 closings in one day. It was a good day. Mrs. Fischetti was happy that day.
I bet she was.
Yeah. You know, and quite frankly, you would think I remember the day, but I really don't remember what we did to celebrate. I really don't. I mean, I think part of it was truthfully, I just thought it was, hey, that's what you did, right? All right, any other questions?
No, it's been awesome though.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. And if you
Appreciate.
need anything, I'm always here for you guys.
Thank you. We appreciate
Jim.
that.
Thank you, Jim. Are you taking new coaching clients just in case anyone wants to call you?
Probably right now, probably not.
Okay.
I'm a little overswamped right now, but maybe I've got some people that I'm going to ask to move on, so maybe I may have some window in the future, but unfortunately, I got a lot on my plate right this minute. So,
Will
Yeah.
you keep Princeton and Cumberland County in mind if you get some slots opened up?
well, you guys would, so that's why you guys would be different. I wouldn't open it up to the public until I gave you guys actually Nick gets first choice because
He's saying that here because
I
we're your
had, well, the
favorite.
reason being, in fairness, Wendy, I love you. However, I will tell you that when I took on my new role, I had to eliminate, and unfortunately, Cumberland County was. So I do want to provide space. If he passes, you'll be the first call.
Okay.
Okay. So
Thank you for your
Been number
honesty.
2 before.
and so you guys are great.
Thank you so much, Jim.
And by the way, Wendy, that doesn't mean I won't take a phone call.
Okay.
Oh,
Thanks.
thank you.
Yep, I'm always
Appreciate
here to help you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for talking
you,
to
Jim.
all of us.
Have a great
you.
weekend.
You too.
You
Thank
Have a
too.
Memorial Day.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Jim. Bye, everyone. Have a
Thank
great
you.
weekend.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you, Nicole.
Bye.
Thank you, Princeton team.
See you, Max.
Mhm.